Counselor Nietzsche, I'm just checking. Can you hear me?
All righty. I get to hit the hammer. Right on. All right. I'd like to call this October 27th, 2025 regular council meeting to order at 5 p.m. Uh, First, I'd like to start off with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that the land in which we gather is the unceded ancestral territory of the Silks, Okanagan peoples, and the Splatson of the Secwepemc Nation. All right. Can I get an adopter of the agenda? Councillor Weiner, seconded by Councillor Fowler. Discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. All right. Adoption of the minutes. Can I get a mover for the adoption of the minutes? Councillor Todd, second. Councillor Drapala. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, move into 4.1, delegations. Community Wildfire Resilience Plan. We have Matthew Shields from Diamond Head Consulting Limited. He's coming to us via Zoom. So I'd like to just, before I hand the thing over, we are doing a 10-minute presentation or a maximum of 10-minute presentation, and we're going to hold questions to the end. And then that way we don't eat into his presentation time. All right.
Okay, I think that's my cue. Thank you very much to the chair. Just let me set up my sharing. I'm sorry, could I have help from the city side to allow sharing so that I can share the presentation slides, please? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so I'm Matt Shields, a registered professional forester working with Diamond Head Consulting, which was the contractor working with the city to prepare your new community wildfire resiliency plan, which is before council's consideration tonight. It's my pleasure to be here, and it's my pleasure to work on these projects with municipalities who are working to protect their communities from wildfire hazard. Um, so what is the Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan project about? Well, these projects are funded through the Union of BC Municipalities Community Resiliency Investment Program, specifically the Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports Grant. And so what these projects do is they develop a strategic plan to guide the city's actions to build its Fire Smart program, which of course is a system of services aimed at reducing wildfire risk and providing information about how to protect homes and businesses to members of your community. So the plan development follows program guidelines, which are prepared by BC Wildfire Service and administered by the UBCM. And the plan process for the city of Armstrong also complements similar CWRP projects, which were recently undertaken by the township of Spalumcheen, Okanagan Indian Band, and Splatson. And with this plan in place, the city will be able to continue making future applications to that Fire Smart Community Funding and Supports Grant, which funds a variety of activities aimed at reducing wildfire hazard. So the project's been going on for a few months now. So contract award occurred back at the end of last year in 2024. The plan's supported by field assessments to look at sites within the city boundary of the city of Armstrong and make wildfire hazard assessments using a provincially standard methodology, as well as taking a look around at some smaller green spaces and pieces of critical infrastructure in the community which may pertain to the recommendations of the plan. Summertime was a period of dry.
Matt,
Yeah.
sorry, we can't actually see your presentation.
Oh, you're unable to see the slides. What are you able to see? Are you able to see no slides? Can you see them now?
No, hang on a second.
I'm so sorry about that.
So online they can see it, but we can't see it here. So we're gonna stop share and then reshare.
Okay. Okay.
We're sorry, folks.
Can you try and load it again?
Certainly.
I thought that he wasn't ready to share yet.
Okay, and I'll just so I am sharing. I'll wait for confirmation
Perfect.
that everyone can see these here. All good? Okay, great. Sorry about that, everybody. All right. So as I was saying, the project start was back at the end of last year. Through the summer months, following the field visits as well as a component of in-person engagement involving a community open house, it was plan preparation time, so drafting. The draft plan is now prepared, and of course, here we are in October, and it's time for council to consider it. So that engagement piece, it did involve information sharing with First Nations, represented as the Okanagan Indian Band and Splatsin. So at different phases of the project, we did conduct engagement and outreach with the emergency services and Fire Smart coordinators of both of those bands to ask for their feedback on sort of the direction that we were setting and see where we could find alignments between the city's Fire Smart program as well as those of neighboring First Nations and communities. As I mentioned, the engagement process did involve that in-person open house, which was co-timed with the field assessments, during which I was at City Hall helping answer questions from the public who were invited to attend. Engagement also included an online community survey through which we asked about people's priorities and preferences for what kinds of initiatives they would like to see through their Fire Smart program. We also asked about sort of the general public's awareness or past familiarity with Fire Smart. So for example, the question result you can see on the screen, we asked, have you completed any of the following Fire Smart activities within a certain time frame? And we're interested to see sort of the level of participation in the community for different initiatives. So the plan summary, at a very high level, the plan is about updating our understanding of wildfire risks surrounding the city in what's called the Wildland Urban Interface. Moderate risk using the provincial standard methodology of wildfire risk assessment that I mentioned before was found. And what that means is, yes, wildfire is a present natural hazard in Armstrong, which is no surprise to anybody. And the plan characterizes that risk similarly to past initiatives like the hazard risk vulnerability analysis as mainly being related to the potential for downfalling embers as a primary source of hazard. So, what to do about that risk? The plan makes 24 strategic recommendations, which are themed by the 7 disciplines of Fire Smart, which encompass education, legislation and planning, so community policies, what we can do with regards to development considerations, working with other agencies like BCWS or First Nations, neighboring municipalities, ensuring that firefighters and emergency services personnel have appropriate training, emergency planning undertaken by the Emergency Services Department, as well as potential vegetation management. And most of the recommendations of the plan can be funded through further applications to the FireSmart Community Funding and Supports Grant. So what were some of those recommendations? I'll just breeze through them at a high level. They include recommendations to maintain the plan on a regular review cycle, as well as participations in regular meetings with other municipalities and organizations in the region in what's called the Community Fire Smart Resiliency Collaborative, which is now a requirement for funding through this grant program. Building awareness with the public, which could include publishing the document on the website, as well as expanding access to printed or digital Fire Smart program materials, encouraging participation in the emergency notification system in place in the city of Armstrong, Alertable, as well as helping homeowners and sort of providing services to homeowners to undertake changes in the private landscapes on their properties to promote a reduction in fire hazard. On that note, the plan also does make one recommendation in relation to fuel management on city-owned property, and that is in relation to Highland Park, the property at the back of Highland Park Drive on the northern edge of the city. The CWRPs, they typically identify what are called potential fuel management areas. These are areas where natural or semi-natural forest cover is proposed through the wildfire hazard assessment process for consideration as an area where treatment could take place, a fuel management treatment could take place in order to potentially reduce hazard to surrounding values. And so what the findings of the wildfire hazard assessment in relation to this property were that challenges with forest health, including dieback in the Douglas fir and western red cedar and other trees on the property, was likely to contribute to fuel loading in the short to midterm. And so while, it isn't sort of a 5-alarm signal here, having this in the plan, it is definitely acknowledging that of all the properties of all the city-owned properties within Armstrong's municipal limits, that this was one where emergency services personnel could consider advancing or recommending to council more work to understand the nature of the problem and potentially propose fuel management in the future. The plan also notes that this property has been subject to discussion in the past with regards to other capital improvements related to recreation. So there's that tie-in and alignment as well. So that was all my questions, and I hope even with the technical difficulties we had in the middle there, that does bring us under 10 minutes. But if there are questions from council through the chair, I'm happy to answer them. And let me just say, it's been such a pleasure to work with the city on this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Do we have any questions? Go ahead, Councillor Fowler.
Thank you for the presentation. That was interesting to have you walk through it. And I think back to a couple of years ago when we as mayor and council agreed to eliminate the public service of curbside prunings and leaves and whatnot, which would be chipped, I believe, at the landfill at that time. So we're actually going back, I think, which I think is a really good idea. I've had many people talk to me about why would we take that service away, even though it's something that a lot of communities don't have. It was something that we felt was beneficial. And I think it's even more beneficial now that we want people to do their fire smart yard maintenance, and we'll have more debris to be taken care of. So I'm sorry about the long-winded, but the question is, and this probably isn't a question for you, but I believe it's number 18 or something on the list. Will we have is the idea of having a chipping program come back to us, something that would be in a localized place where people would have to take their prunings there? Or would we be able to have a pickup again at least once a year?
I can speak to the sort of support through the FCFS grant program for chipping programs, but I am wondering if staff on the call are able to answer the specifics in that question from the councillor.
Yeah, I saw Warren Smith's hand go up there.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councillor Valstar. Through the chair to council and members of the public that are listening online, for clarity, the chipping program is not scheduled to come back at this time. The chipping program that is discussed and were provided information on within the report is one of the recommendations, is to provide that type of service to the community that is specific to fire smart programs and to fire smart neighborhoods and properties. So it wouldn't be something that would necessarily be offered throughout the entire community on an annual basis. It would be based on people having assessments done of their property, then mitigation works being done. And if it's done by themselves, then we would be potentially be able to provide a chipping program to support them with their initiatives. If that provides clarity.
Go ahead, yeah.
So does that, but that's what I'm getting at. Would it be somebody coming to those properties to do the chipping, or would there be a centralized location they would have to take their stuff to?
Through the chair again. It could be rolled out in a variety of different ways. Common practices that other communities provide is that they will set up a specific date, time, location for a neighborhood that has participated within the Fire Smart program, and that opportunity will be provided. Others have done it single residential properties where they've hired a contractor to come out that's organized through that individual, and the grant funding pays for that chipping to take place for an individual property owner. But it wouldn't be any part of an ongoing annual chipping program for the community.
Thank you. So just another thing that came to mind is with our transfer station, do we know if there will be the opportunity for people to take their prunings and leaves and whatnot to be composted at the transfer station? I'm not sure about the answer to that. Maybe I should know it, but I don't.
Chantel, go ahead.
Thank you. It's not an answer to your question, Councillor, but I have Mayor on the line asking councillors to speak more directly into their microphones. He's having troubles hearing. So just a friendly reminder. Thank you for letting me interrupt.
So that question was directed towards Matt.
Well, I'm not really directing it. I just probably would like it thought about so that if we don't have the opportunity to take prunings and clippings and stuff to the landfill, then I think it's something we have to look at as some kind of a service or something, because we want people to clean out their yards and prune back, get rid of cedars and all kinds of stuff. So I think we have to have an opportunity to offer something. Thank you.
May I comment through the chair in response to the councillor's question?
Yeah, go right ahead, Matt.
Okay, thank you. To speak in generalities, so what the councillor is contemplating is another example of a program or a service that could be supported through grant funding. As the manager of emergency services, Mr. Smith was describing, the specific details of implementation are left to sort of further consideration. However, for the councillor's reference, current versions of the FCFS grant do allow communities to consider things like working to reduce or eliminate tipping fees on green waste coming from a property that has a completed Fire Smart home ignition zone assessment. So that is the kind of thing that can be considered through the city's Fire Smart program if there is demand and interest in having that service.
All right, thank you. Councillor Todd?
Thank you, Your Worship. I was very excited to see that chipping item there, and I was assuming that that was going to be what it was, but apparently that's not what it is. So, but if we can arrange to have something that, I just think it would be more cost efficient to have it for everybody once a year or twice a year or something like that, perhaps, than having them driving around to different locations weekly doing it. It just seems to me that that would be the way to go, but that's just, who knows?
All right, Councillor Rayner.
Thank you. So I really appreciate all the work that went into this. The recommendations, I thought they were well thought out. I was just curious that after this summer, we had a fire over on Pleasant Valley Road. One of the farmers' fields went up, and fortunately it didn't get into the trees that were at the end of the field. And then when I looked at that and thought about that afterwards, I looked, and a lot of that treed space and a lot of the growth and overgrowth that gets trimmed somewhat is on actually railroad property. Mm-hmm. Curious about opportunities through this grant and I'm not sure what challenges there may be to be able to maybe reduce that risk throughout the year.
Through the chair. Yes, so unfortunately, through the grant program, opportunities to partner with private commercial tenants or landowners are more limited than they are to partner with private residential homeowners. The focus of the grant program administered by UBCM is on either private residential homeowners as well as public property located within the WUI. So the CWRP itself, it can direct things like liaison with the landowner, the railway, but unfortunately, it can't extend sort of the same grant funding or grant eligible programs or initiatives necessarily to that property. So some of the solutions there might need to be explored in further detail in terms of some of their cost implications and whether they are able to be delivered by the city's Fire Smart program.
Thank you. That's unfortunate, but hopefully we can find a solution in that. Thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions. Thank you very much, Matt, for coming to speak to us today. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
All right, moving on to 5.1, Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan. Report by Warren Smith, Manager of Community Services.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I won't go through all of the details because I think what we've just spoken to and the information that Matt provided really sort of covers the direction of the report that you have before you. I will add a couple of comments in addition, that one being the financial component. So the steps and process that we will go forward with in the coming weeks, should council make the decision to proceed, would be one is that we will be closing out this current grant that we are in. The resiliency plan is kind of the final component. We will do our wrap-up report, provide that to UBCM and the province. From that, then that opens up the door for us to proceed forward with receiving the opportunity to reapply again for year 2, 3 funding if we wish to go that direction. Should we choose to go that direction, we can apply up to $400,000, so $200,000 per year for community. Part of that, there are a number of requirements that we would have to bring into place, but the 24 recommendations that were provided through the resiliency plan would be categorized and determined as to when those would take place on a priority level. So really, what we're looking for this evening from council is two things through our recommendation. One is that council endorses the City of Armstrong Community Wildfire Resiliency Plan, and that council authorize the Chief Administrative Officer to submit a grant application to UBCM Community Resilient Investment Fire Smart Stream.
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
Thank you, Worship. Just to add to that as well, one of the things that has been going on in the backgrounds with this is conversations between myself and the CAO at Small Machine as to whether there's some synergies that we can have with the delivery of the program. They're in the similar boat with their Fire Smart process, and so if there's a way that we can maximize some efficiencies there, we want to see what that looks like. And so the resolution is reflective of that, so that it gives the authorization to submit to the program based on whatever the outcome of those discussions are, because there is no end date per se to the application. We just wanted to make sure we had it on the books.
All right, let's put the motion on the floor first, and then oh, you'll move the motion. Okay, we have a mover. Councillor Wayner is moving it. Councillor Todd seconded. Discussion. Councillor Todd?
I really like number 9. If we can make sure that that's a priority, that's the chipping program part. I think the community would really appreciate that. I mean, we've heard enough that, I mean, I don't assume that the city owns a chipping machine, but I'm sure that we'll get some use, but I'm not saying buy one, but I mean, as long as that's at the forefront of our discussions.
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
Thank you, Worship. So with any of the recommendations that are in there that are service enhancements, those would be things that we would need to discuss probably at budget to talk about strategically how they'd fit in. I'll need to get a little bit of the background as to why it went away in the first place, but with anything at any time if council wants to explore that, we can certainly do that in terms of having that conversation. So.
All right, thank you very much. I had a quick question here. It was the on number 10, consider developing a rebate program for fire smart initiatives on private property. I guess maybe this one would go to probably Warren, I guess, but more or less, would we just kind of create our own grant program that people submit to, or maybe give me a little bit of the idea behind number 10 there?
Thank you for the question. The way the rebate program has traditionally worked is, yes, it is part of the overall grant application that we would submit. Communities all over the province across Canada have done this in different shapes and form. In general practice, what they do is a property owner gets what's called a home assessment completed. There are recommendations put forward from that assessment and things that may stick out, such as cleaning gutters, removing wood piles, removing cedar hedges, whatever it may be, are categorized. And from that categorization, it's determined the level of risk for that property, as well as the amount of time and effort and workload that it would take for a property owner to reduce the risk on their property. Grants are generally offered at approximately about the $1,000 level. Other communities have chosen to go higher. Other communities have chosen to go considerably lower. So that would have to be determined by staff with a recommendation to proceed forward with at a set level. But a property owner then would have the option of doing the work themselves or hiring a contractor to perform those works. Generally, the grant doesn't cover the cost of what it would take for someone to fully fire smart their program, but it acts as an initiative and provides some type of compensation for a property owner. $200,000 seems like a large amount of funds, but it can disappear very quickly when you're looking at wanting to do mitigation on municipal properties. You're trying to do long-term planning. You want to change bylaws. All of those 24 things all unfortunately come with a dollar figure attached to it. So most communities will set a specific amount of available funds, such as $10,000, and divide that by the amount of, say, 25 properties or 10 properties that they want to have impact on their community.
All right, thank you very much. Any further questions? All right, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right. 5.2, strategic and financial update, third quarter. Report by Trevor Seibel.
Thank you, Worship. So this is just an update for council on the strategic plan and the financial plan information to kind of give an update on some of the progress of the key initiatives that we've started. Staff is obviously here if there's any specific questions to answer from what you've seen. On the strategic plan, we would just like to say that, you know, there has been significant progress made on the initiatives that council set out for this term. I tried to highlight those within the document that's attached there by showing the ones that are completed. There are some that are kind of ongoing, so those are just initiatives that will kind of carry on into the future. You know, obviously a couple of the big projects that are underway still that are nearing conclusion or will have some sort of resolution before the end of the term. A couple of key projects being, you know, the water reservoir and transmission project, obviously the Kerry project for PV North, which is well underway, as well as the service review for the fire commission stuff, which is continuing to move along and to getting some direction on. So the outstanding ones are well underway as well. So that's a good thing for council to have in terms of the progress that's been made on all of those initiatives that were set out. From the financial side of things, again, Mr. Martins has provided an update on both the operational and capital or project-based information, showing that things are on track to be hitting our budget targets, and there's some variance explanations there for a variety of them. So, without going through them line by line or providing the details, certainly any questions that council may have of either myself or staff, we can answer those at this time.
All right, well, before we start asking questions, let's get the motion on the floor. So that the report titled Strategic and Financial Update Third Quarter from the Chief Administrative Officer dated October 27th, 2025 be received for information. Can I get a mover? Councillor Todd. Second, Councillor Drapala. Discussion. Councillor Fowler.
Sorry. I'm just wondering if we could have a bit of an update on where Kerry project has taken us in the last month or so, and also the wastewater. Is there anything on that we can talk about?
Thank you, Councillor Fowler, for the question. I'll speak to the wastewater one first, and then I'll let Ms. Cordell speak a little bit to Kerry process. We're continuing to work through or with the contractor Scenario Water for the wastewater project. I've been going back with them in the last few days here just to finalize or confirm the pilot terms with them. There's been some questions that have arisen that we're continuing to work through. So once we have an answer on that, we'll be able to come back to council with a more formal update on where it's headed. Specific to Kerry, Ms. Cordell can give a bit of an update on the design work that's been going on since then.
Sure. Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Fowler. So in the last month, we've finalized the little bit of design changes that were outstanding to accommodate the trucks. We have got the RFP underway, so that not the creation of the RFP underway with the consultant, and he's working on the Class A estimate. We've also been able to sort out the information that we need to start to talk to businesses, so we're almost ready to go out and do that. And I think those were all the things that happened in the last month.
Just a quick question. Are we still expecting to have that RFP put out this fall?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Fowler. Yes, indeed we are. Yeah.
All right, any more questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, 5.3. Council remuneration. I said the word right. Report by Mr. Martins.
Thank you. The council remuneration policy dictates that for most years, every 3 out of 4 years, the remuneration is adjusted simply by the BC inflation rate, the average inflation rate in the province. We're at a point where we're in the 4th year, where we look at the other scenario, which is a full benchmarking analysis. So the report that's in front of you, there is a linked schedule, and we'll have a look at that here as I speak. So the benchmarking is actually dictated by a separate policy for benchmarking purposes. And in essence, what it does is we pick the closest 10 municipalities in the Southern Interior that are closest to Armstrong by population, with no more than 2 below and 8 above our population. And Armstrong is to be included in the analysis in the sample size. And when it is ranked, it is then the lowest and the highest are lopped off. And what you see in front of you there is the first set of data is for the Office of the Mayor. So that those figures obviously are the population amounts based on the most recent provincial estimates, as well as the current remuneration for the mayor. And the second, the middle columns are for the Office of Councillor. So you can see the differences there that it's not in the same order. All of them are ranked are sorted by the remuneration amount from lowest to highest. The third section of data is the actual position ratio. So that is the magnitude of the mayor's remuneration over the councillor's remuneration. So right now, Armstrong is the lowest in both categories. The District of Kent is the highest in both categories. The ratio that Armstrong has is shown on the right-hand side there, 1.7 and change. The average for the ratio is 1.96. So we're a little bit or considerably below average. But as you can see from the benchmarking, Armstrong is lagging behind in both of those offices, in both of those positions. So I've provided a number of options, 4 of them for council to have a look at. So starting with option 1 would be the full policy compliance, where basically the average that is calculated from the benchmarking exercise, again, lowest removed, the highest removed, and the remaining 9 municipalities, the average of those 9. So for option 1, that would mean a remuneration amount for the mayor of 40,686 and 20,567 for councillor. If that option were chosen, the total impact starting in 2026 for all members of council would be a little over $31,000. Option 2 is basically starting from option 1, but then calculating 50% of the difference. So this is what I call meet in the middle. So this is somewhat of a middle ground in that it definitely closes the gap, but halfway. So that total increase would be 15,658 impact for 2026. Option 3 that I presented is matching the current amounts with the Township of Smalmachine. So that is the highest magnitude, being that the township does have considerably higher amounts than what we are currently showing in our remuneration package. That impact would be roughly 34,000 for next year. And option 4 would be the same policy requirement that we do in the off years. So if we did that again by simply following the BC inflation rate, that would have the smallest impact of 2,900 and change. However, if that option was chosen, basically that defers the issue in that the gap would just continue to get larger. The option that staff is recommending is option 2, where that gap is closed substantially, but not all the way. But again, these options are available for council's discussion. What I've also provided in the report is the equivalent tax increase that each of those options would equate to. One thing I should mention as well is option 2 would bring remuneration very, very close to what the town of Oliver is right now, and Oliver is slightly smaller, and the remuneration would be for Armstrong would be slightly higher than what they are. So that would be a very good comparator to use. Soyuz is another very close comparative as far as population goes, but their remuneration is considerably higher than what ours is. Thank you.
All right, so because we have 4 options to choose, rather than moving one right away, can we put it on the floor for discussion and then choose which one we're going to move? That might be more of a question for Trevor and Chantel.
Thank you, Worship. Certainly, rather than going through the exercise of putting on the floor and defeating and otherwise, it might be beneficial to have a bit of a conversation before one of them gets put on. Obviously, there is a recommendation that staff has put forward for how to approach it. If council's not comfortable with that, then, perhaps a conversation quickly before you move a resolution.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna necessarily have a quick conversation about it, but let's have a conversation about it. I'm thinking that Shirley, you're the one putting your hand up first. All right, go ahead, Counselor.
Yeah, I know there's a game tonight. You don't want me to talk too much, but I've already messed that up. I can't, in all fairness, see us going with option 1. I don't think we should stick with option 4. I'm on my way out of this political ring, and it seems to me that we have not kept up in the past. And I think that we definitely need to have some increases if we want to have people applying to be on, not applying, but putting their name forward to become councillor, mayor or council. I could live with number 2, and I don't think we need to try and match anybody else. I think we need to work on our own, which would be number 3 would be matching. I could go for number 2, but I'd love to hear what everybody else has to say. But I also think the $300 technology needs to be raised. I know we've talked about, well, I guess some of us have talked about this in the past, and it hasn't been raised, but the cost of the telephones and the cost of the monthly fees are borne mostly by us. $300 doesn't go very far. And I don't expect that we will have our expenses covered. We're buying our own phones and we're paying for most of our own cost to operate that phone. But, we're told we have to have a separate phone from this than our home stuff. And that's kind of a big expectation. And so I think I could live with number 2 if we could talk about increasing the $300 technology amount. For example, at regional district, every electoral area director has a phone given to them and their costs are paid. I'm not suggesting that we do that here. And, but just, and I don't know what other communities do. That might have been a good thing to check with other communities, but that's there. I'll just put that on the table for discussion.
All right, thank you very much. You want to say anything there? Yeah, go.
Thank you, Worships. So on that premise, certainly that conversation can happen as it relates to the policy that value is contained in. I've also heard some concerns about needing to review our expense policy as it relates to the per diem values and that sort of thing. So those are both on my radar to look at. Specific to the issue of the phone, one of the things that I am working on is a BYOD policy, the bring your own device policy. Because we already have the technology in our existing subscription to facilitate having your personal and work on a single phone and the necessary protections from a FOIPA perspective to do that. So I am putting something together that I'll bring back to council as part of that to look at for consideration. So.
Okay, just, yeah, who's that? Ryan has his hand up. Okay, just give me a second here, just to go off the technology piece. So what we're gonna put on the table here is separate from the technology piece then. That's a conversation for a different time. You're just bringing that up now. Okay. Okay, I don't need any comment on that. Go ahead, Councillor Nitchie. Your volume is not working. Might be an us problem.
Well, you're sorting that out. Could I ask a question? So just for clarity, did you say that it's not an issue anymore to have city and your personal stuff on one phone? Is there improvements made in that regard? Because that I hadn't heard that.
Yes, with the Office 365, Microsoft 365, there is a software, I forget the name of it, off the top of my head that comes with our subscription that can facilitate the separation of your personal and work, so that if an individual leaves the employ of the corporation, you can just suck back all of the work-related stuff without you even being able to stop it. It's actually similar. When I was in West Kelowna, we had the same setup and used it very efficiently there. And so on my personal phone, I had basically a menu that allowed me to flip between work and personal. And my last day of work, they just hit a button and it sucked everything out of the phone, like it was gone. So the corporation still retained it until they dealt with it within their policies, but it eliminated the issue or the risk of using a personal phone for work, because you can just toggle between the two. So it exists. And I'm going to bring that forward for discussion in the future, because I think there's some cleanup of a policy that we have in that regard too. So
somebody asking for the, what is it, the privacy? If somebody asked for,
So the FOIP, any FOIPA requests that come forward, we have the ability to then search the individual email on the back end to do any of that kind of work. So if somebody decided to request information, we would just do the search through the system on the back end and not your personal stuff. Yeah.
All right, looks like Councillor Nitchie logged out temporarily, so maybe he's trying to sort something out on his end. Does anyone have any further questions on that? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Todd.
I agree with Councillor Fowler about number 2, but I also think that if we could take some weight off the incoming council, and if we deferred number 1 to next year, if were we able to do that? To put, like, take number 2 and then put number 1 on for the new council, say it starts that in January or November, and then they don't have to worry about it. And my other question is, no matter what we do, is the inflation, everything just kick in as per normal the next few years?
Okay, so there was 2 questions there. Inflation, that happens anyways, and the first question is can we take option 1 and kick the can to the new council 3 months into their first term?
No, can we take option 2 and then allow option 1 to kick in then for them, not us? We'll take option 2, so we get the lower amount, but then they'll get the higher amount when they get elected.
It's an interesting way to approach it.
Am I able to be heard now?
Yes. Hey, Ryan, we'll take your question in a moment here.
Sure, thank you.
It's going to respond to Councillor Todd.
Thank you. You definitely could pick whichever option you want at this point in time, and that would be for 2026. But then when the new council is sworn in December of 2026 and they can choose at that point which option, if any of the options. They can even ask for a 5th or 6th or 7th option at that point. So stating now what you would want that council to do, in my opinion, I think you should probably look for 2026 at this point and leave 2027 for the future council to chart their course on.
Understood. Yes. Thank you. Councillor Nitchie, please, and then Grappler.
Thank you. I am sorry, I'm sort of technological gremlins today. So thank you, and through the chair, just to speak to the report. I think Councillor Todd has probably brought up some thoughts that I had around the issue. I think that councils in the past have gone through a rather robust and pretty detailed exercise in terms of trying to deal with the council remuneration issue, to the point where, we had volunteers from the public, the business community sit around a table, did quite an extensive, quite a bit of extensive work on coming up with a fair and equitable and a balanced approach to council remuneration and coming up with a policy. The reason why we moved forward with that process was to take some of this ambiguity out of the equation. And at that time, council's remuneration compared to other similar communities had fallen significantly behind. And once again, we've fallen significantly behind. So I think that I don't think we should be falling behind again. And I think we owe it to those councillors and mayors that are coming after us to ensure that we're keeping pace, but also being mindful of the fact that these are taxpayer dollars. So in my opinion, I think that a reasonable solution is to go with option 2, but I think we should approve option number 1 for the incumbent elected officials coming through. So basically, for the remainder of this term, we would be council will be remunerated at the levels of option 2 as recommended, and then effective December 1st, it would increase to the option 1 levels. That's my opinion.
Okay, so if I hear you correctly, you're creating an option 5, which is a combination of option 2 stepping into option 1. Right?
Yeah, through the chair, that would be correct. I think it would be a kind of a hybrid motion if we could.
Maybe Trevor, can you speak to that maybe?
Yeah, thank you, Worship. The way that you would do that is you would approve option 2 as is presented, and then you would have and further that option 1 as outlined in the report be adopted effective December 1st of 2026, because then that would trigger the increase at that point if you were to go with what Councillor Nitchie suggested.
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Drapla.
Thank you. I see what everyone's trying to do, and we're trying to be respectful to spending taxpayer dollars. And I also want to remember back to a time, not as far as Councillor Fowler or Nitchie, but being a newly elected official and stuck with having to address this issue and look at really large increases in terms of percentages, and then having to justify why we would give ourselves a 50-60% raise as a council, right? Just to get back on track. So I agree, like everyone else, that option 1 is pretty challenging to justify at this moment. But I think in saying that, then we're acknowledging that our benchmarking procedure isn't actually valid anymore. And so if we believe that our benchmarking policy is true, then I think we should go with number 1. If we're all sitting around the table saying, hey, number 1 is challenging to stomach, let's go with number 2, I'm okay with that. But then I think we should revisit our benchmarking policy before we decide what we're going to do for the next council. I think we need to sort that out before the next council. But if we're sitting here saying, okay, that number 2 or number 1 is too much, let's go with approving number 2, except my end that would be that staff bring back further analysis of the benchmarking that more matches what we think. Like maybe our 10 communities is too much. Maybe the population spread of them has kind of outstripped where they were in the initial creation of that policy. So like, is it time to revisit those 10 communities and see, okay, do we maybe shorten it to not so many above us in population? If we're looking at 2 below population and 8 above us in population, inherently we're going to be skewed moving forward, moving up, right? So is that something to revisit? But if we're just going to keep the same policy, I would rather just do it now and us kind of shoulder that blame and separate it from the election, then and if we don't believe that, then let's revisit the policy. So my suggestion would be number 2 with a revisitation of policy, of the benchmarking policy prior to next year.
Okay, hold on. Let's let Councillor Wayner speak, and then maybe we'll throw something.
Yeah,
on the
thank
floor.
you. I definitely see what people are saying, and I like the idea of it. I'm looking at things through a policy lens as well. I respect that. My preference is option 2. I don't like the idea of imposing anything on the next council. I know it's a benefit. There's a very minimal increase for councillors overall between the 2. It's mostly for the mayor's position from what I can see in the 2 options. As far as the policy goes, I actually like the idea of options, seeing what the recommendation or seeing what the benchmark is, and then having recommendations that may not meet it. But from what I can see, we're bridging up. we're approaching that, and it may not be at the speed that we would necessarily like, maybe not able to stomach right now, but given time, I believe that we'll probably get to those benchmarks. And I think it's good to have those benchmarks in place, especially the way they are, the way the policy is written. So I'm inclined, just in my mindset of not quite reaching it, but on the way to get there, I'm okay with option 2, but I think I'll leave the rest be for now.
Okay, so, yeah, Councillor Drapeau, go ahead.
I guess just one more, rebuttal to that is I know that a new council has the ability to choose whatever direction they want. I feel like the easier direction for them to choose as a newly elected official would be to back off of an existing policy, not to be like, hey, we noticed that there was this policy and I think that we should get back to it by increasing our remuneration by 50%. So I would rather set things up as we're on the path that we like in terms of remuneration, but knowing that a council can always kind of defer backwards to that if they want. It's a tough decision to make as a new councillor.
Okay, well, I think we have at least one motion that we can put on the table. I feel pretty confident about. Rather than doing an and that, maybe can we do that as a separate motion separately, and well, maybe we can discuss that piece of it afterwards. Well, specifically what I'm talking about is the policy review of the benchmarking, rather than attaching it to option 2. Let me read the. All right. So we are recommending that the 2026 Council Remuneration Report from Chief Financial Officer dated October 27th, 2025, together with Council Remuneration Benchmarking Analysis be received, and that option 2, as outlined in report, be approved by amending the annual remuneration for the mayor to $35,391, and for each councillor, $18,840 effective January 1st, 2026. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Drapola, second, Shirley, Councillor Fowler. Discussion. Like we discussed it pretty thoroughly. All right. Call the question. All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Mayor Kramer, I cannot see your hand voting up or down when it's a black screen. So anyways. Oh, you're putting your hand up? Sorry, Chantel, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mayor Kramer is having some issues hearing and going in and out, and so he's listening as he can, but you may not be able to see him in there. I've noted that for the minutes in the record, sir. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, so, and then to follow that up, maybe Councillor Drapola, do you want to maybe, do you have a motion type of idea for your benchmarking policy?
Sure. I'd make a motion that staff come back to council just with a review of the benchmarking to see if it still applies as we have thought, or if different options of if you're noticing something in the benchmarking that might be an anomaly, just to have a discussion around that.
I'll second it, Your Worship, and I'd like to speak to it.
Seconded by Councillor Nietzsche. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, thank you. And Councillor Drapola, I support the motion. I would like to see a timeline in terms of receiving the report back from staff. I really want this council to make that decision so that we aren't falling behind farther, and so that the next council isn't fettered with having to make a decision that we didn't make. So I think it's up to us to set the tone for the next council coming forward. So I'd just like to see some sort of a timeline placed onto the motion so that we have the report by, April or May, or even sooner.
All right. Thank you very much. You got something to say? Go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. So just to concisely wrap up what was put on the table, is that that staff bring forward a review of the existing benchmarking policy, and to Councillor Nitschy's comments if you wanted to add before March 31st of 2026
Sure.
or sooner, that if that's agreeable,
Yeah.
we could put that in there and then we can start working on bringing something forward.
That sounds like a very concise recommendation. Go ahead, Councillor Weiner.
Just a question, when was the last time the policy was reviewed? Does anybody know, or was it a long time? So Councillor Nitschy, you seem to know more.
Yeah, it would have been, I'm wanting to think that was around 2012. I'm thinking 2010, 2012, somewhere in there. I know former Councillor Froats was a part of that committee, and several other business people were on that committee.
I feel like we've had something more recent than that as a revision.
In terms of this new initial, remember that there's been various iterations of this type of policy for years on council. The general theory was always that we didn't want to be the highest paid or the lowest paid, but always be somewhere in the middle. But coming up with those benchmark communities was always a challenge for staff because populations varied and sizes of budgets varied, and roles, responsibilities may have varied slightly between communities. So yeah, it was always hard for staff to come up with reasonable comparatives.
It looks like Trevor has the answer here for us.
Thank you. The council remuneration policy was adopted in August of 22, but the benchmarking policy was approved in October of 2018.
Yeah.
So it's been a few years, so
Before that.
the review is probably reasonable.
All right, so is there any further comment, questions? No? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Right. We got that. Got through that pretty good. 5.4. Authorization to amend covenant for 2440 York Avenue. Report by Lori Cordell.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a follow-up to the zoning amendment that council adopted at the last meeting. This is kind of the last step in the process where the covenant that is registered on title that restricts the uses on the property of the golf course to very specific uses needs to be now updated to reflect the 6 RV stalls that are permitted on there. So the applicant is getting their lawyer to draft up that covenant because it's very old. So it's not like we have a digital copy of it. And they will add that one use. We'll have it reviewed for our legal team. And then this is just to ask for authorization to have it signed so that we can get the project moving forward.
All right, so we've got a recommendation that council authorizes the amendment to update the covenant for 2440 York Avenue to include 6 unserviced recreational vehicle sites. Do we have a mover? Councillor Todd, seconder, Councillor Drapala, discussion? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Procedural question. I know the mayor always says who was opposed to it. Do we do that every single time? Just a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Your council procedure bylaw does require the corporate officer to record in your minutes and the records anybody who is opposed. It is a really nice thing for you to do as the chair so that I'm catching it just in case. I do watch each of you individually, but it's a nice thing to do to make sure everybody's on the same page, and I appreciate that, Your Worship.
Alrighty, so if I saw correctly, it was just Councillor Weiner who was opposed to that. All right. Okay, moving on, bylaws, 6.1, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 1929, 2024, amendment bylaw 1940, 2025. Maybe Trevor, do you want to speak to the next 3 of these?
Sure. Thank you, Worship. So 6.1 and 6.2 are amendment bylaws that are coming back for adoption that were given 3 readings at the last meeting. So those are just to adopt those. And 6.3 is the amendment to the former City Hall site to bring the zoning into compliance to the direction that council was given. With the changes to the legislation, we don't have to have a public hearing for that because it's consistent with the OCP and based on council's direction. All of 3 readings and adoption are on the table for that one.
All right, so we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves here. Let's do it one by one, and then we'll go through the process. All right, so that 2025 to 2028 permissive tax exemption bylaw number 1929, 2024, amendment bylaw 1940, 2025 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Drapala, seconder, Councillor Todd. Discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. That the City of Armstrong 2025, 2029 financial plan number 1933, 2025, amendment bylaw 1943, 2025 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wayner, seconded by Councillor Todd. Discussion? All in favor? Carried. And then I'll do both of these second ones on 6.3 here. That zoning bylaw number 1921, 2024, amendment bylaw number 1944, 2025 be given first, second, and third readings. When it has an and that, is it all part together? Okay. And that zoning bylaw 1921, 2024, amendment bylaw 1944, 2025 be adopted. Do I have a mover? Councillor Wayner, seconded Councillor Drapala. Discussion. Councillor Fowler.
Yes, just for those that may be listening online to the meeting, I wonder if we could just have an explanation of what that zoning could entail.
Lori Cradell.
Thank you, Your Worship, to Councillor Fowler. So the zoning that is proposed in the amendment bylaw is to go to the town center commercial zoning, which allows a mix of uses, including commercial, residential, kind of any kind of commercial like you currently see downtown. It also includes major childcare facilities, offices, that kind of thing it's kind of an all-encompassing commercial zone.
And thank you for that. I just had somebody that was concerned that we were not going to anticipate any housing and a couple of other things. And I just thought for those people that are listening, they don't know what that means. So thank you for that explanation.
Seeing no further discussion, I will call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay. Matters referred from committee, commission, and in camera. Verbal update from council members as required. Does anyone have any nothing to bring back from commissions? Well, I think I can give you a brief one on the last Parks and Rec Commission meeting. It was fairly brief. I think what we talked about the IPE. The IPE came in and gave their summary of how the year went. And from what they can tell from the numbers that they're still gathering is that it was a similar year to prior years that they've had. And that overall their cleanup of the grounds and the way that they've used things since prior years has been significantly better than it has been, and the communication amongst staff has been a lot better. Which resulted in a much cleaner handover than we've had before. So it was excellent. Anything else, Councillor Todd? Okay. Oh, yes. And yeah, that was the other thing is the IP brought forward, they would like to upgrade the electrical on 3 separate buildings. Their horticultural building to get its own 200 amp service, the green grandstands to upgrade from 200 to 400 amp service, and ball diamond number 3 to get a 200 amp service installed, as there's currently no power there at all for that entire area. So they put that forward, and they're collecting quotes at this time. Seeing that there's nothing more for committees, this is the portion where we go in camera, so that that council proceeds in camera pursuant to the section 91C of the community charter, labor relations and other employee relations. Can I get a mover? Councillor Drappler, seconded. Councillor Todd. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. All right, so we're going to take a 5-minute recess then, and we will meet back.